Although the Maya of northern Yucatan esteemed Plume Serpent as the creator of their world and a bringer of rain, earlier southern Maya peoples sought even closer association with him, granting him many more functions and referring to him by different names. The city of Palenque in southern Chiapas sets the stage for this earlier time. Early Maya built their city halfway up a majestic mountain slope called the Big Sea, in honor of the primordial sea of their creation story. Following their mythic creator Plume Serpent's example, they created a sacred space and opened a channel between heaven and earth by measuring the parameter of the city of Palenque and centering it at their palace. This creation of sacred space rippled through Palenque's population and encompassed the way individuals laid out their cornfields and homes. By emulating the actions of their mythic figures here on earth, early Maya mixed supernatural forces with material form. Structures within Palenque also depict the human effort to join with the spirit world. Pyramids were raised, emulating the creation spirit, bringing land and mountains up from the primordial sea. The palace, the domain of the king, was not only the seat of man-made decisions, but also a portal to the under or other world. Early Maya ball courts were made and maintained as an entry of a different kind to the other world. In and around city centers, giant plazas were considered places where people could swim in the ecstasy of dance and commune with the spirit world. For the early Maya, the king was the closest thing to the spirits themselves. He was their world tree and staff of life, the very corn and sustenance upon which they relied. At Palenque, in the temple of the Foliated Cross, sits the head of one of their most revered rulers, Pakal II, in front of a stela, or stone shaft monument, of the world tree. Additionally, their king was their great diviner, the unparalleled human being who could cross over to the other world and bring back knowledge. Such kingly importance is demonstrated on Pakal II's sarcophagus lid, where we see him in death, falling from the Big Dipper at the top, symbolized by a majestic bird, down the world tree, passing through the double-headed vision serpent, an early Maya name for plume serpent, before landing or sitting upon the mask of Xibalba, the underworld, which he visits before rising to the stars. In general, vision serpents were the pathway through which supernatural beings traveled to this world. Their maize god, for instance, was reborn from the serpent's mouth, and ancestral figures were often seen leaning from a vision serpent's open jaws to communicate with descendants. It was said that parents could find their babies yet to be born by entering a state of trance and traveling the serpent's belly. The vision serpent had other names depending upon his function, such as heavenly dragon, war serpent, or Kawil, a god of human form associated with royalty, possessing the spiral pupils, forked nose, and curved fangs of a snake. Yet it was the king, consorts, and nobles who most often called vision serpent through personal bloodletting and dance. The people knew that their king was a vessel for spiritual powers, both harmful and beneficial. The king affirmed his power to control these forces by dancing in the plazas. Through dance, the Maya sought the mystical transformation from human into supernatural form by means of visionary trance. Dancers transformed or shape-shifted into their nawals or soul companions, animal or supernatural spirits that helped transport them to the other side. To make this transformation even more significant, kings and nobles often dressed in costume and mask. Close to Palenque, two neighboring Maya cities, Bonampak and Yaxchilan, battled constantly for dominance, with Bonampak being a dependent of Yaxchilan much of the time. Bonampak contains a three-roomed building called the Temple of the Murals, housing some of the best preserved early Maya paintings. These colorful murals illuminate the social function and theatrical splendor of Maya dance. In Mural 1, 3 noble brothers prepare for a public performance. Various helpers straighten their large plumed costumes for a feather dance. To the left of these nobles is a procession of musicians and additional dancers cast in the roles of mythical beings. Lower in the mural, other masked dancers appear, dressed in frightening masks of monstrous otherworld beings, further demonstrating the transformation of humans into mythic, supernatural beings. The second room depicts the greatest battle scene of Mesoamerican art, a violent conflict where prisoners are taken and killed in the company of the highest members of court. Mural 3 depicts a celebration after victory in war. The 3 brothers depicted in Mural 1 now dress elaborately in green, quetzal-feathered headdresses and dancers' wings. On the south and west walls are 7 more elaborately costumed characters with similar headdresses. They each have one heel raised and arms stretched out, as if they are about to begin a spinning dance. Anthropologist Joy Parker gives a plausible explanation of the Maya spinning dance by reflecting upon her own experience of becoming a Sufi dancer. I experienced a deep feeling that I can only describe as being at the center of true reality. It is perhaps impossible to convey what this feeling was really like, but it filled me with a vivid sense of unity with all animate and inanimate things everywhere, and a powerful sense of wholeness. After long periods of dancing or whirling, I was able to observe the confusions and conflicts of my daily life line up into meaningful pictures. Creative inspiration was also one of the benefits, and ideas for projects, and even their consequences should I decide to pursue them, would simply appear in my mind. There are ways of knowing far more readily accessible to us through the body than through the mind. I cannot claim to understand precisely what the Maya lords were feeling when they danced upon their pyramids. But I do know that sacred dance raises powerful energies, especially when performed in the company of other like-minded dancers. It is not difficult to imagine how practiced Maya dancers could shift from normal consciousness into an altered state by means of movement. For the Maya, both ancient and modern, dance was public in its performance. It induced visionary trance in which individuals and large groups went into altered states that allowed both transformation and communication with the underworld. Thus, nestled in the jungles of southern Chiapas, within the arms of ancient Maya dancers, is a cultural reference that hints at the origin of the lineage's own adapted modern-day movements. Not surprisingly, the further back one follows the trail of the plumed serpent, the more relevant its meaning to those who practice the modernized tools of the lineage today. Yaxchilan shows some of the most stunning examples of the vision serpent, giving reference to the lineage's way of visioning, called dreaming awake. Commissioned by 2 of Yaxchilan's most prominent kings, Shield Jaguar II and his son Bird Jaguar IV, richly carved lintels once dotted Yaxchilan's doorframes and buildings, supporting the ceremonial mood one feels upon entering the city. Each major lintel shows the vision serpent manifesting through the bloodletting of the nobility. Lintel 14 depicts Lady Chakchami and her brother wielding bloodletting paraphernalia. From the mouth of a large serpent emerges the vision of the probable form of Lady Chami's child, the future Shield Jaguar IV. Lintel 15 depicts one of King Bird Jaguar IV's wives, Lady Waktun, during a bloodletting ritual, resulting in the appearance of a vision serpent. A vision serpent emerges from a bowl in full-bodied splendor as he spits out a supernatural being who has made the journey from the underworld. And Lintel 25 shows Lady Cabal Juk conjuring up the founder of her husband's lineage. Wearing a costume of a Tulalak warrior, this ancestor emerges from the jaws of a frightening double-headed beast with a half-flayed body decorated with feather fans. Some say this is the war serpent version of Vision Serpent. Besides lintels depicting the visions of nobility in differing states of dreaming awake, the entrance of Yachalan shows another reference to one of the lineage's practices. The only way into Yachalan is through a structure called the Labyrinth. Entering the dark, meandering tunnels, one immediately loses his sense of direction, space, and even time. Every few feet and around every corner are seats for the entrant to sit and reflect upon his life, inviting him to leave behind what doesn't work. Akin to the lineage's modern-day practice of recapitulation or life review, this way of cleansing before entering Yachalan adds to the city's sacred mood. West of these early Maya cities in southern Chiapas sits the Veracruz Tabasco region, or Olmec Heartland. The Olmec are considered the lineage's first ancestors, for they created a template for most major Mesoamerican civilizations that followed. Anthropologist George C. Vaillant gave the name Olmec, or rubber people, to the inhabitants of this area after excavating their cities, which dated as far back as 1800 BC. Without written texts or modern descendants, only well-educated guesses about the Olmec can be derived. One poem in Nahuatl, recorded after the conquest, speaks of a legendary land on the eastern sea, and may be the only remaining reference to the Olmec. In a certain era, which no one can reckon, which no one can remember, where there was a government for a long time. The major gods or mythical figures of Mesoamerica were shaped from those of Olmec times. The great god of the Olmec was the were-jaguar, a combination of feline and human features. Anthropologist Michael D. Coe and art historian Rex Kuntz suggest the Olmecs may have believed that at some distant time in the past, a woman cohabitated with a jaguar, giving rise to a race of were-jaguars, combining the lineages of felines and men. These are usually shown in Olmec art as somewhat infantile throughout life, with the puffy features of small fat babies, snarling mouths, toothless gums, or long curved fangs and even claws. Other major figures of Olmec mythology were Fire Serpent, a four-legged reptile responsible for carrying the sun on its journey across the sky; Fire God, master of volcanoes and god of the domestic hearth; Feathered Serpent, albeit by the different names of Olmec dragon or avian serpent, which many anthropologists agree are forerunners to later Maya sky serpents and celestial rain-bringers. Few, very few examples of the Olmec avian serpent remain. A stone carving at La Venta Park shows a priest-king seated in an avian serpent's coils holding an incense bag. Another stone carving appears at Chalcachingo, showing a man disappearing into or emerging from avian serpent's mouth. And at Waxlahuaca Cave in Guerrero, there is a rare painting of an undulating red Olmec avian serpent with a panache of green plumes on its head, guarding the entrance to an underworld cave. Besides the myth of avian serpent, precursor to Vision Serpent for the early Maya, to Kukulkan for the later Maya, and to Plumed Serpent or Feathered Serpent for the Teotihuacanos and Toltecs, the Olmec originated many other traditions. They provided the concept of sacred space, which existed throughout Maya, Teotihuacano, and Toltec civilizations. They introduced sacred dance and enticed those who followed to become dancers of infinity, starting with assumed body postures and evolving to later strings of dance steps. The Olmec were the first to intend to transfix dancer and audience, bringing both to a state of exalted perception. They gave the concept of shape-shifting or merging into one's nahual or spirit animal guide for a glimpse of the other side. They originated the plaza, the location upon which they themselves and the Maya danced, transformed, and communed with spirits. The Olmec left the ball court, a feature echoed throughout most Mesoamerican cities as a portal to the underworld. The first Olmec sacred mountain, shaped like a volcano, led later civilizations to build their tallest pyramids, ascending to the stars. The Olmec initiated the wearing of feather headdresses, owl feathers, by kings, which changed later to Quetzal feathers, and signified the king's prowess in traveling to the underworld. And it's not unlikely that the Olmec literati invented the long count and perhaps certain astronomical observations, since the Olmec were the first known peoples to gaze at the stars and track the passage of time. Additionally, they introduced the idea of the king as the world tree, which was prominent for the Maya, Teotihuacanos, and Toltecs. And the Olmec were the first to introduce bloodletting and human sacrifice, revering the principle that to receive the best from the gods, they had to give their best in return. This history of the cultures from which many members of the lineage came is that of the Old Seers, those dating before the Spanish conquest of central Mexico in 1519 and of the Maya Peninsula in 1528. As Don Juan Matus explained to Carlos Castaneda, these seers engaged in bizarre, concrete practices designed only for power in the other world, or the second attention, neglecting the daily world and ignoring their fellow men and women. Because of this great misperception, these seers faced devastating defeats during several conquests by invaders before the Spaniards arrived and with the Spanish conquest itself. After the conquest, the surviving seers regrouped and transformed the idea of using power to govern beings in the supernatural world to governing themselves. This helped them face the daily world and their fellow men, and was crucial to the survival of the lineage. These men and women called themselves the New Seers. What does this mean for the lineage today? When Don Juan met Carlos Castaneda, he saw that Carlos would be the last Nahual, or leader of his lineage. The New Seers used this same term to mean the energy body, or dreaming body, that can access the awareness of animals and other beings and bring visions and dreams. Don Juan said it was up to Carlos and his colleagues, Florinda Donner Grau, Taisha Abelar, and Carol Tiggs, what to do with this knowledge they inherited. Their choice was the one they deemed most challenging, yet which had the most heart: to open up their knowledge to others in its renewed, adapted form, shared through tensegrity events, trainings, and classes. From this point forward, those practicing tensegrity and acknowledging their Nahual or dreaming body became their own Nahual or leader. Today, people practice magic dance steps in the form of tensegrity movements or magical passes to access their dreaming body. Today, there are tensegrity facilitators around the world to help interested students embrace their magic through such teachings as energy management, life review, multiplicity, or the gaining of multiple points of view, dreaming, silence, and impeccability, or doing one's best. Today, new seers look to the stars and wonder at the majesty of the universe, the mystery within themselves, and their chance to become their best selves. They take their purpose seriously and themselves lightly, embodying more and more the plumed serpent myth, the being who integrates earth and sky, body and energy body, in their endeavors. The once secret knowledge of Carlos Castaneda's lineage is open to anyone willing to explore its practices. The knowledge of the lineage of the ancient seers of Mexico and of Carlos Castaneda lives on.